the absolute last thing I'd ever want to do, even if it's an away player, is mispronounce an action.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marc Israel, and welcome to Courtside, the podcast that gives a fan's eye view of the NBA. And so that's what we're doing. The idea is to bring in as many people who are involved with the NBA as possible and talk about who they are, what they do, and what it is that they add to the game that we all love so much. So with that in mind, there was one guy who, quite frankly, I'm going to say right to his face, I had never really given much thought to, right? It didn't really dawn on me until I looked to my right from my seats. And I saw a guy that I did not recognize, although I recognized his voice, right? I didn't recognize the guy. And he was busy as all heck, right? Just busy doing a million different things. And that's the public address announcer for the Houston Rockets and our guest today, Jonathan Sanford. Jonathan, thanks so much for being here.
Mark, it's a pleasure, man.
I'm so glad to hear it. And it's really true. So let me, I'll let you get into a little bit of your own background, tell your story a little bit. But you are the public address in-arena announcer for the Houston Rockets. Anybody who is a fan has heard Jonathan's voice and Jonathan's, classic calls over and over again. But you also do the same thing for the University of Texas Longhorns.
That's right.
Which is pretty darn cool. I don't know if there's anything much cooler than University of Texas football. And I really appreciate you coming in here to talk to me a little bit because, like, as I said, I got to know you. We became a little bit friendly, and quite frankly, if somebody had asked me what the public address announcer at a hoops game does, I'd say, well, they say now coming in is this guy,
right.
Now going out is that guy, fouling this guy, fouling that guy, and I would say you'll tell me that sounds like 1 or 2%. Yeah, it's like almost a tiny little piece of what you do. So I'd love to talk today about what you do and all the things that go into it. Because like I said, I see you interacting with the refs. I see you interacting with the guy that does the shot clock. I see you dealing with the people who do the TV broadcast, the crew that does the sort of the entertainment, the fun little contests on the court. So, having said that, Jonathan, welcome and thanks so much for coming, man.
Mark, thank you so much for the invite. You talk about looking to your right. Well, for me, it was looking to the left and seeing this guy, this animated guy down on the left side of the court. And at first, when somebody comes in new and you really don't know them right away, you wonder, are they here for the Rockets? Are they here for the visiting team? Or are they just a fan of the NBA that wants to come check out the atmosphere? But when I kept seeing that familiar face coming in the arena, I knew we had a new fan of the Rockets and just immediately fell in love with your enthusiasm for the game and your just ability to react in the best ways to the best moments. And that's really what NBA fandom is all about, is having that passion for the game and knowing when to react and how that encourages everybody around you to react similarly. And listen, even though these are professional players, they feed off of the type of energy that you bring. So I love it.
Thank you, man. That's really nice of you to say. And it's funny because people have said to me, like, how you jumping around and you didn't got, I really don't know what I'm doing there, to tell you the truth. It's all just the sort of the pure excitement and the joy that's generated by the players, by the game, and quite frankly, by a lot of what you do. So, I want to get into what you do, right? Sure. Because, like I said, it's far more than just announcing who's coming into the game and who's substituting out. But let's go backwards a little bit there. Why don't you tell me I know you're not originally from Texas. Why don't you sort of give us a little bit of your background and how the heck you wound up here, man?
Well, I'll start off by saying there's a classic statement that all transplants to the state of Texas make, and that is, I got here as quick as I.
That's a great line.
I mean, if you want to get in good grace with Texans, that's the statement you have to make. I grew up in the state of Alabama, about 40 miles northwest of Birmingham, Alabama, in a place called Jasper, Alabama. I grew up there. My brothers and sisters were 20 years older than myself. I was a surprise. My parents were in their mid-40s when all of a sudden they found out they were having a brand new addition to their family. So my brother and sister had already moved out, they gone off to college, done their thing. So I was really an only child in that sense, being at home with mom and dad growing up. But I fell in love with sports really, really early. I remember one of the first experiences I can remember of sports was going to a high school football game, Walker High School in Jasper, Alabama. Now it's called Jasper High School. But I remember going there, and it was the colors, the smells, the sounds that just won my heart. There's certain moments that I can remember as a child that really captured my imagination. And that night, I remember we were playing a small town in Alabama called Perry. And the colors, it was orange versus black and gold. It was just something about that night that won me over, right? And my next big memory, sports related, was the Alabama-Auburn game. Growing up in Alabama, when you're born, they slap you on the behind. They ask you one question: Alabama or Auburn?
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, really, truly.
That's true. But
And I didn't know. My sister was a big Auburn fan. The rest of my family, all big Alabama fans. And it was the 1985 Iron Bowl. And we're watching that game, and it came down to a 53-yard field goal by Van Tiffen for Alabama to win the football game. And it's the first real sports memory I have of him kicking that field goal for the win. That just, I was like, I'm an Alabama fan from here on, right? So those two things were the two first memories for me. But then I remember going to games and hearing this voice at the stadium. And that voice would just ring out. And I remember going to Legion Field in Birmingham, Alabama, and hearing this man announcing his name was Simpson Pepper.
that's a great name.
Yeah, what a
Simpson Pepper.
Pepper, yeah.
That's awesome.
A legendary public address announcer at Legion Field. And I right then, I was just like, who is this guy? And how does he make his voice sound this good? And then as I got a little bit older, I started becoming an NBA fan. Robert Horry played basketball for the University of Alabama. So wherever Robert Horry went, man, I became a fan. But there was this other team called the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. And I remembered watching on NBC the broadcast of NBA playoff basketball, and they would highlight the player introductions. And you may remember this, Mark. The song Cirrus was played during the introductions. They had a famous public address announcer by the name of Ray Clay.
This is the Bulls?
The Bulls, that's right. In the 1990s, right? So I just fell in love with that sound, that voice that was doing the starting lineups live on NBC. It was, and the lights and the smoke and the atmosphere, just, I want to do that. But growing up in Alabama, it was like, well, there's no professional teams. It's either Alabama or Auburn. And I said, I still want to do it. One day I want to do it. So in 1997, I had the opportunity to go to an NBA playoff game, and had the opportunity to meet Ray Clay.
Wow.
And I said, Ray, I want to do this. How did you get to this point? And it was just a brief conversation, but it won my heart. And so I made my decision. One day, I'm going to be an NBA public address announcer. But again, I grew up in Alabama, and I thought, well, there's Atlanta, the Atlanta Hawks. But I didn't really want to move to Georgia. I really had no intention of moving to Texas, really and truly, until one fateful day I met my wife, Jennifer Powell, who grew up in Austin, Texas. And so we married and made the decision to move to Texas. And our first stop was right here in Houston, Texas in 2003. And so I'd already been announcing high school stuff and some college stuff on the lower levels, but my desire was still to one day be a Division I college, whether it's basketball or football. Baseball would have been fine too, but really my two greatest passions were basketball and football announcing. We moved here to Houston. The first team to ever give me an opportunity, this is going to be interesting, Mark, the first team to ever give me an opportunity to announce after we moved to Houston was Channel View High School over on the east side of Houston.
Sure.
The head coach of that team is Averion Hurts, who is the father of Jalen Hurts.
Oh, wow.
The Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, he was a little kid back then, but I started announcing here, Averion Hurts, and people would come to those games and they would hear me and they'd, why aren't you announcing for the Texans or the Astros, the Rockets? And I would always say, well, I just haven't had the opportunity. I really didn't know, Mark, at that point in my life, how to get myself in that direction. So we lived in Houston between 2003 and 2011. In 2011, my wife got a job offer back in Austin, which is her hometown, all of her family there. And so I said, you know what, babe, you followed me wherever I've asked us to move to based off my work. I'm also a counselor and a minister. So you followed me wherever I've been. It's your turn. And I don't know if you had ever heard of the show Friday Night Lights, the TV show, not the movie. And at the end of that program, the coach made the decision to follow his wife. So I had that kind of in the back of my mind. I said, you know what, Jennifer, I'll make the decision. I'll leave my job. We'll move to Austin and we'll be good. So moved there to Austin in 2011, and there wasn't any openings for me right away. So I went down to Austin Independent School District, and I said,
cool.
Listen, do you guys have any openings for announcers at your high schools or at your stadiums? You have 2 or 3 big stadiums there in Austin. They said, we really don't, but listen, if you'll turn in a resume and go do the background checks and all that good stuff, we'll use you whenever we can. So this gets me into 2012, and I get a call one day from the athletic department. They said, one of our announcers has gotten sick. We have an area track and field meet up at Nelson Field in Austin. Could you come up and fill in? I said, I'll be glad to do it.
Track and field.
Track and field, which I'll be honest with you, Mark, I'd never done once.
Figure it out.
But I said, it can't be that hard, right? So we go there that night. My father-in-law tags along with me as a spotter. And we go there and I announce that game, or the track and field meet. I'm walking down the stadium steps, and this gentleman is standing at the bottom of the steps. His name was Wade Johnston. He was one of the athletic directors there. He said, you've got the best voice I've ever heard.
He did.
He said, I'm going to go home tonight and call the other athletic directors, and we have to get you as one of our men. And I thought, this guy's just being nice, but he did. He was a man of his word. He went home that night. I got a phone call a few days later from Lynn Poole, a great lady there at Austin Independent School District, one of the athletic directors. She said, Jonathan, we'd love to use you. We've got state softball playoffs coming up. Would you be interested in doing that? I said, I'd do it in a heartbeat. So I show up to this state softball playoff game. I'm announcing this game. And what I don't know, Mark, is that day we were playing, the team that I was announcing for was playing Dripping Springs High School.
Okay.
And in that crowd that day was Laura Cousins, who is the wife of the then head of the University Interscholastic League, the UIL, which governs all of the state of Texas athletics and fine arts. But the main thing was athletics in my mind. She calls her husband and says, I want you to hear this. She holds her phone up in the air and says, we need this guy announcing our state softball championships. So yeah, it was crazy. So I get a phone call. They asked me to come announce at the University of Texas at Red and Charlotte McCombs Field, where they play Texas softball. All the state championship games here in the state of Texas for state softball. So I go there and announce that game. So I'm just, right now, I'm taking on this journey where the right things are falling into place. And I then have the opportunity through a couple of connections to find out that the San Antonio Spurs, their public address announcer is stepping down. And they're going to be looking for a new announcer. So I'm in Austin. I'm doing these various events, making connections, and I make a connection with a gentleman by the name of Mike Plummer, who works in game operations for the Spurs, and he hears me and he says, Jonathan, it's a game changer. You need to apply for our position. So I put in an application. I go in the studio and I record myself as if I was the Spurs announcer. I just did some intros and some game calls and sent it in, just kind of wiped it from my mind because I didn't want to get my hopes up too much. But I get a phone call from the Spurs, and they said, we'd love to meet with you. We'd love to have you come down and call a preseason game. And long story short, Mark, between 2011 and the fall of 2011 to the fall in 2012, I go from being somebody who nobody knows to being in the Spurs organization as a voice of the San Antonio Spurs.
That's unbelievable. I mean, you're a guy practicing your craft and
all these years prior, and not knowing where it would lead, but always having that dream in the back of my mind, right?
And the Spurs organization now, but particularly that, right? One of the finest organizations
Absolutely.
in sports.
Like,
so,
I walk in that door, you've got Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Greg Popovich, and it was a little intimidating, I'll be honest with you. Just the thought of working with those legends. But I go in there and I just take everything that I've worked on over the years. And that first season, they sent me up to, they have a D-League team up in Austin called the Austin Spurs. And they send me up there that first season. They said, we want you to get some experience with this team. So they had a backup announcer that had been with them for about 6 years. So they used him down in San Antonio. They sent me up to Austin to work with their D-League team. Now it's called G-League, but back then it was D-League in 2012. So I announced for that team up in Austin. I'll never forget, Mark, one of the funnest moments during that season was we're in the playoffs. And we have this young lady out at the center court to sing the national anthem. She gets stage fright and just leaves, just walks right off the court.
before she sang the
Yeah, before. And they're like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, hand me the mic. And I sang the national anthem just right there from my scores table. And on the broadcast, they're like, the public address announcer just sung the national anthem. Like, how did he introduce himself? You know, like they were laughing about it. But I'll never forget that day because it was that moment where I think the Spurs then said, we've got to get this guy down south. And so the season finished up, and the next 2013-14 season, they moved me down into that main seat with the Spurs. We went on that season to win an NBA championship.
Incredible.
Announced the NBA finals. It was such a whirlwind experience. But, you know, working with that organization at that point in time was the best thing for me because they had things in place that just kind of gave me the right amount of freedom. Still early on in my career, the right amount of freedom to know what I should be doing. Working with Greg Popovich was the right limiter. And I'll put it to you this way. His hand is on everything. When you were there back in that day, his hand was on everything.
Even on what you were doing.
Even on what I was doing.
Explain that.
Okay, like I knew limits. I knew there were certain things, like I said, at the end of the quarter, the Spurs were winning by 20 or 30 points. I'm not going to get on the mic and go, and the Spurs are whipping them 35-14, because if I did that, Popovich was going to go over to where I was sitting and look down at me, and I knew if that was the case, just pack up my stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like you knew there was a decorum, a grace that you needed to have as the announcer. So I was there through the 2017-18 season. My wife developed cancer in November of 2016. I had been fighting that valiantly. We decided after that 2017-2018 season to move back here to Houston because MD Anderson, I don't know, Mark, how familiar you are with MD Anderson Cancer Center, but it is the absolute best. And I wanted my wife to have the absolute best because I got 5 kids and I need my wife to stick around for a long time.
You're a good man. So you moved.
I stepped down from the Spurs. I told them that summer, it was the same summer that Kawhi Leonard left the Spurs. Manu Ginobili retired. In fact, they announced it all on about the same day that I was leaving the organization, to move here to Houston, and that I was doing it for family reasons. I wasn't leaving San Antonio because I didn't like the job or wasn't content with working with the Spurs. It was just, I had to do what was best for my family. And so we moved here, and I thought at that point, Mark, I'm done. I've lived out my dream. Won an NBA championship alongside that great team in 2014, the beautiful game, as they called it. And I thought, okay, that's it. Well, I remember that next season sitting in my office, watching the NBA move on without me.
Oh,
And I had tears because it was kind of like that moment, a full circle realization. Okay, it's done. It's over. So I got busy just announcing here in Houston again, doing high school sports. Alvin Independent School District here gave me an opportunity to announce for 3 teams. Won a state championship with Shadow Creek and the 2019 season. Just having fun and just trying to fill that void that was missing in my life. But just being grateful that my wife was healthy and is doing great. My kids were adjusting well. So 2020 happens, COVID. We get through that. 21, I had gotten COVID that summer in July of 2021 and was feeling awful. I mean, it hit me hard. August rolls around. September of 2021, I get a call, from a guy Matt Thomas, the radio voice and the former public address announcer, from the Houston Rockets. He said, Jonathan, I just wanted to ask you, would you be interested in taking a call from the folks in the game operations with the Houston Rockets about the vacant public address announcer position with the Houston Rockets, because Matt was going to be moving into radio full-time and stepping away from PA. And I said, absolutely. At this point, really though, Mark, I was thinking this is just a backup gig. Like maybe it's COVID. Maybe they just need a backup guy. Because I would assume, man, you've got all these wonderful voices here in Houston. Certainly there's somebody they've got in mind.
yeah.
But they brought me down. It was the most amazing moment. I walk into the Toyota Center. I walk through that tunnel, which is an amazing, I'm sure you walked through that tunnel.
Yep.
It's such an amazing feeling.
Real feeling. Yep.
I walk in that tunnel and they've got that massive 360 board lowered all the way down. And they've got a little section of scoring tables set out and a microphone. They said, Jonathan, we want you to announce as if you're the Houston Rockets announcer. They played some game footage and they said, we want you to just be the Rockets announcer, which was the coolest thing to me. Like,
cool.
At this point, I'm playing with house money because I'm not thinking they're looking for the main voice. I just think maybe they're looking for a backup.
Right.
I did my thing, shook everybody's hand, walked out that door and said, thank you for the opportunity. What a great experience. I'm sitting at my daughter's homecoming game, announcing her homecoming game, football. She was in the band at Clearbrook High School. My phone rings. I look down. I'm like, who is that calling? Well, I better answer. It could be somebody here at the game. It was Natalie Alvarado.
Oh my God.
Who you have, I'm sure, such a legend in Houston. She's a music artist, has had a top hit. Natalie is, as she's known, but she is in the Rockets entertainment side of the organization. And she said, Jonathan, just want you to know, you're our guy.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait, you mean the guy? And she said, yes, you are the guy. She said, there was no question. When you walked out of that room that day, we wanted you. And I was just stunned. Like, the game's going on. I'm supposed to be announcing, but I'm like, y'all, hold on. I got a phone call. I was just shocked.
Wow. Oh, you were announcing the game.
I was announcing the game. And so, like, the timeout, it's going on, everything. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, y'all. Like, this is huge. And I'm just kind of sitting there in stunned silence.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And again, tears, because, like, my dream was back. And, you know, you and I both, I'm sure you know that for that time, the Rockets were in the midst of a major rebuild.
Yeah.
So I come in that 2021-22 season, in the midst of that rebuild, and I don't remember how many home games we won that year, but it was quite a contrast because with the Spurs, the 2015-2016 season, I was 40-1 at home. Only lost one home game that entire 15-16 season, and not many, comparatively speaking, the other years. But that first year with the Rockets, like, I don't remember how many we won, but it wasn't a ton. But every win was the most savored moment.
It's interesting.
And you may recall the Rockets win call. That's where that was born, because you were so grateful for a win that first season that it just came out of me in the most passionate way possible. But that's the journey. That's how I ended up with the Rockets, from a small town in Alabama to right here in the heart of Clutch City. And Mark, I can't tell you enough how grateful I am. I always tell people it's not who you know, it's who's willing to say they know you.
That's great.
And building connections and being dependable. And that's really what has paid off for me the most, is just being that guy that when I say I'm going to be somewhere, I show up. I'm always prepared, so that maybe one day somebody says, hey, I know Jonathan Sanford, and he's that guy that will do what you need him to do and do it to the best of his ability. And so it's been a blessing to me to end up in this spot.
It's unbelievable. That's an amazing story. And for those of us who get to watch you in action at the arena, we're very lucky, right? We're very lucky to have you, and even those watching at home on TV, right? We all hear you. You've also added UT, right? So now you've added UT football. Tell me a little bit about that.
Not this summer, but last summer, I was sitting in my office, and I got a text message from a young man that I helped get his feet acclimated as a host with the San Antonio Spurs. And his name is Marc Israel. And Ray and I worked together during my time in San Antonio. He went on after that to become the host for Texas football.
Okay. And explain to me what host.
Well, just like at our Rockets games, you've got Kiati.
Yes.
And Lauren, that's her host. During timeouts, they're doing promos and things on court. Well, the football game, during timeouts, they're out on the field and they're doing reads and they're interviewing Matthew McConaughey and all that good stuff. So that's what Ray does for Texas. But he gave me a call. He said, listen, there may be an opportunity. He said, I can't tell you that it's going to happen, but there may be an opportunity for a position to come open as the voice of Texas, the public address announcer. There's a legend in Austin. His name is Bob Cole. And Bob's voice is about as well known in Austin as barbecue. He's been in local radio there for a very, very long time. And Bob has been the voice that Texas football has known for, I think, nearly 40 years, to be honest with you. But Bob, there was an opportunity to possibly step into that spot. And so he said, would you be interested in talking with the University of Texas? I said, I would. I said, that's been a dream of mine since I was a little kid. Of course, growing up, I always thought I'd be the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide. But I married a Texan, got here as quick as I could, right? So I said, yes, Ray, you're welcome to share my contact information. So I get a phone call. They asked me to come to DKR, Darrell K. Royal, Texas Morgan Stadium.
Legendary place.
Yeah, I mean, I show up there that day. I park in the parking garage. I walk to this entrance of the stadium. They send somebody down. They take me up to the 8th floor, walk me in this press box, walk me down the hallway to that famous room where, Bob Cole has sat for a very, very long time. They have the mic set up. They had people, I really don't know who all, but I know they were some pretty big names there that day. They said, we want you to announce as if you're the Longhorns announcer. So it was kind of full circle, kind of what I did with the Rockets.
In the empty stadium?
Yeah, the empty stadium.
With no fans there.
No fans
but
there.
Your voice echoing.
Yeah, but there were some names in that, and I won't share the names, but there were some very important names in that stadium that day. Announce as if you're the Longhorns voice. And I did. It was quick. I did my thing, shook everybody's hand, went back down the elevator, went all the way back down to the floor, got in my car, and booked it back here, Houston.
That's unbelievable.
The season was about 2 weeks away from getting started. Still had not heard. And I was like, well, okay, maybe it's not meant to be. And really, my heart was with Bob because I was trying to look at it from Bob's perspective. If you've been the voice of a team that long, it's got to be emotional to not be in that seat any longer.
Absolutely.
And I didn't want a situation where I'm coming in here and pushing somebody out of their seat, especially somebody that I care about as much as Bob. And so we worked out an opportunity for Bob to continue to announce during pregame for the band, for the Longhorn band. So he gets to do that, and then at halftime come in and announce for the Longhorn band. And then this guy gets to travel wherever the Longhorns go to play on the road and announce for the band whenever the band travels. So it turned out to be a wonderful opportunity. A couple weeks before the season, they called me and said, Jonathan, we want you to take the position, and here's what Bob's going to do. It's going to be great. And that first game, it was really emotional for me because I was in that booth and I walked out and Bob was sitting out in the hallway and he's getting ready to come in and do his thing. We shake hands. We kind of introduce ourselves. He goes in and does his thing. And I'm watching the band and watching the big flyover, like incredible atmosphere. I'd been to some Longhorns games, but never with as much about to take place as was about to take place for me that day. He gets done. I walk back in the booth and he's standing there in front of me and I just said, Bob, thank you, brother.
It's amazing.
And I'm emotional. He was emotional. Just gratitude. And that was a moment that I felt like, hey, this worked out as wonderfully as it possibly could. And I've got a great working relationship with Bob, and University of Texas has been absolutely phenomenal to me. This is my second season. We've already had 3 home games this year. The fan response has been incredible. It's funny, people ask me, Mark, which do you enjoy? Because that's always going to be people. Which do you enjoy most, Rockets or Long? Listen, there's no difference for me in the enjoyment. My enjoyment is 100% on both. There's not a single moment that I sit behind that mic inside the Toyota Center that I'm not amped to the gills, just like inside DKR. Because when you've dreamt of something your entire life, you don't get tired of it. You always feel like you are privileged to be in that seat. And so whether it's the Rockets or the Longhorns, man, I just feel like I could never deserve it. I mean, but I'm just grateful for it.
Well, we're grateful. We're grateful that you're doing it. And, I know that you have a presence on social media. I've seen you at the Rockets games with your iPhone set up and I don't know if you're streaming or recording. But I watched you on Instagram. I told you before we sat down today, I really only follow 5 people on Instagram, right? My 4 daughters, just to make sure, see what they're doing, and you.
Smart dad.
and I'm keeping that, and you as well. But when I watched the posts that you put out there at the Rockets games, and particularly the ones I've seen now at the Texas football games, the look in your eyes, it's sort of the joy, and yeah, there's a little bit of a look in your eyes of boy, I'm the luckiest guy in the world to be here.
true.
You know, I was telling you before we went on the air, this great call and response thing you do, which I want to talk about what you do with the Rockets, but the great call and response thing you do at UT, right, where you say Texas, or you don't say Texas, you say it the way you say Texas.
Texas!
Say it, and the fans yell,
Fight!
It's pretty powerful, right? You have 100,000 fans in
100,000, 119 plus fans inside DKR, and anytime the team gets a first down, that'll be enough for another first down. Texas, and then the crowd comes back with fight. And that's not original to me. I wish I created that. That's been around since the beginning for Texas, the Texas fight mantra. But when they told me that was something they enjoyed doing, I was like, oh, I love that. That's going to be fun. And I was glad to have the opportunity. And you've seen that on those videos, where it's powerful to hear that call and response. A lot of you ask me, Mark, why did you choose public address versus radio or TV? Because radio or TV, you don't get that real-time, intimate interaction with the fans like you do as a public address announcer. Like, what radio guy gets to hear 100,000 fans immediately respond to his call? What TV guy gets to hear that? But I get to say Texas and hear 100,000 plus fans come back with fight. Like,
pretty powerful. That it must really send a chill up his spine.
Yeah.
And you do it with the Rockets, right?
Right.
2 shots.
Yeah.
Or what you say it.
2 shots.
Yeah. And the crowd repeats it right back.
Yeah.
Right?
It's such a cool thing. Like, you were with us during the playoffs last season, and to hear 18,000 plus people in a closed arena, to hear them 2 shots and then hear 18,000 people come back 2 shots. Like, there are moments that I just kind of slump down in my seat like, wow, like, that's so cool. Like, and the fact that fans care, like, that they want to do that.
You love it.
Like, my children, when they were younger and I would do that call, like, Dad, oh, we love that. Dad, that's our favorite thing. And I was like, well, if my kids like it, I wonder if the fans will like it. And then, you know, to hear them want to do it and do it. And you know, we've heard some people right here in this room say they have children that like it later. So if that's a memory, Mark, that kids, especially, because you got to look back at how I got my start. It was by hearing someone else and thinking, I want to do that. Like, if I can pass that on to somebody else, to a younger generation, and maybe one day somebody take my place, good. Because that's passing it on. That's, you know, giving the opportunity for future generations to have the passion that I have. So that's the reason why I try to include stuff like that in what I do.
Oh, it's super cool. We love it, and the crowd just enjoys it. Is that something that you did with the Spurs, or
It was. It got its start when my wife began her cancer battle.
Okay.
I'd been doing that 2 shots for a few years, but during that season, 2016-2017 season there in San Antonio, one of the local radio people was talking about my wife's cancer battle. There was a big story that aired from San Antonio to Austin about my wife's cancer battle, which was really humbling that they would even care to talk about that and honor us that way. But one of the local radio guys in San Antonio said, you know, we ought to, whenever Jonathan says that in honor of his wife, we should all repeat 2 shots.
Oh, so it was in honor of your wife.
Yeah. So they started, like, I remember the first time we heard it, like, a gentleman who I worked with at the time, Daniel Casados, did we just hear them say 2 shots? It like started in a corner of the arena, and we're like, I think we heard it. And that season, it just built and built and built. And by that playoffs year, then 18,500 people were doing it. And it was, In fact, I remember a few times wondering if Coach Pop was going to come over and say, "Hey, we're missing free throws because of this." No, but it never happened. Like, he was cool with it, and so yeah, it had a special meaning. And when I came here to Houston, I thought I won't do it. But then my children were like, "Dad, we miss it. We miss it. We miss going to games and being able to say that was our way to participate with you, Dad." I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And so we started doing it here in Houston. And this past season, it really caught on. Was special to hear.
Yeah, I would say by the end of the year and certainly into the playoffs, I think everybody in the arena was doing it, right? It's your
And to have my wife be in the arena during those playoff games and hearing that, like, she was emotional hearing it, because she's cancer free now, and which is just what a blessing, right? Beautiful. But it just kind of took her back, and she was, just as grateful for it as I was.
It's an incredible backstory that was developed, in sort of honor of her. That's really amazing. So, talk a little bit about what you do, right? So obviously you're announcing players coming in, players going out, but you shared with me both in person and when we've spoken on the phone that there's a lot more going on. You're interacting with the refs and the officials and the scoring and the 24-second clock. So talk to me about a little bit about that sort of stuff that you do.
So one of the things that I really decided early on that I wanted to do, I've got to stay focused. And to be able to stay focused during a game, I keep all the stats. I've got a Surface. I used to use my iPad and the Apple Pen, but recently, this past season, I switched over to a Surface Pro. But either way, I keep stats, and I'm keeping track of all the fouls, and so that I can know how many fouls each player has and how many have been committed in each quarter. Because, once you get over that 5, you get to 5, there's free throws, and I want to make sure if especially with the opposing, if they are supposed to go to the line, okay, they're going to go. But if they're not supposed to be at the line, I want to make sure I've got, everything correct, which has helped a couple of times over the years where there's been a discrepancy and somebody's been sent to the line, and I'm going, no, they shouldn't be at the line unless that's a shooting foul. They're at 4, they're not at 5. And so, it just helps me to stay focused. That's what I'm doing during the play of the game. And then during timeouts, as Mark, from being a part of Rockets games, we have a lot of great, Rockets entertainment is such a phenomenal part of our game night experience, in that, we have Kiati and Lauren, and we've got the opportunity, the Clutch City Dancers. We've got Space City Seniors, the little kids that are out there.
Adorable.
It just, wow.
I like the baby races.
Yeah, the baby races. So all these things that we plan out, we rehearse them. We show up like at a game night. We're there at 3:30 in the afternoon. We do full run-throughs of all these things. So I've got all these scripts in front of me. We've got our director beside me, and we're making sure that everything happens exactly, the timing, everything exactly the way it's supposed to, because we want the overall entertainment experience for every fan who comes into our arena, whether you're a season ticket holder or a first-time guest. We want you to see everything as perfect as possible. So I'm always thinking ahead and what's coming up the next time out and what scripts I've got in front of me. And so it's more than just here comes a player on the court or off the court. Yes, I still have to focus on all that and who makes the basket, but also thinking ahead as to what we have coming up next time out. How are we going to get the fans back in? So let's say, Mark, that a team, we go on a run and the crowd is really into it. Well, that opposing coach is going to want to call a timeout to try to get the momentum down, silence the crowd. Well, I don't want that to happen.
Right.
I want to keep that energy high. And so we're going to work on what can we do during that timeout to get the fans back to that fever pitch they were when the timeout was called. If we just sat there and let the crowd die, then we haven't done our job. And so I take that very personally, like what music we're going to play coming out of that timeout. We have DJ Palmo, and making sure that we have all the right tracks that are going to be played coming out of this. So our director has a big job in making sure that all that is facilitated, all the right cons, all the right people, red ops as we call them, making sure that those timeouts are flawless. And so it's more than just, like I say, calling the action. We want to make sure that for you and everybody else in the arena that you get the full Rockets entertainment experience.
That's unbelievable. And in those timeouts, not only do you have to keep the energy up, but it sounds you're cramming an entire entertainment segment into what, like a 60, 90 seconds?
Man, it seems longer than that. I think it's like 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
So
it really has to be precise.
It has to be precise, and you have to run people on the court and off the court in time because coming out of the timeouts, you don't want people lingering on the court, and so I think that I have an important job, but I think the person who has one of the most important jobs is Natalie Alvarado, who sits beside me, because she is directing all those things, making sure everybody gets on and off the court in the right time. And but we try to work together to make sure it's all as flawless as possible. Because, again, you want to make sure that the people who paid their hard-earned money to come and be a part of that experience walks away with the best memories possible.
It's unbelievable. What I really love is watching the when you do the player introduction.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of any game.
Is it really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So first of all, let's deal with the other team. I just love the way you do, and I think this is universal throughout.
Oh, it's
right.
It's gamesmanship,
right? So show me how you're yelling and introduce the other team.
Well, I'll take you back, back when I was with the Spurs, when the Spurs were playing the Miami Heat.
Okay.
The announcer for the Miami Heat is a guy by the name of Michael Biamonte. Okay, and Michael, he has his style, is very fit and ready for Miami. They love him there. So I was like, listen, when Miami is introduced during the finals, I want to deadpan it out. I don't want to be like, and now the Miami Heat. No, I was like, I want to be like, and now the Miami Heat, And so the gamesmanship, it wasn't anything disrespectful. When the Spurs would go to Miami, the same way he would do. And so it taught me a lot. And then, now with the Rockets, whenever we bring a team in, especially the Golden State Warriors, Matt Thomas, who preceded me in that spot, a very deadpan as well. A very famous deadpan situation with the Golden State Warriors back in a few years ago. But you just want to make it as deadpan as, Steph Curry, And the one that's the most fun to get the booze is Draymond Green.
Yeah, it's kind of like the fans love that.
They just love it. And so you're right. That's fun. And I love the crowd response. Whenever you're doing that, they get into it. They have fun with it as well. So, and it's funny, of all the things I didn't realize coming into this years ago, that would be one of the things that people enjoy the most.
Yeah, I get a huge kick out of it. Now let's talk about the Rockets introduction, right? So yeah, talk to us a little bit about how you came up with those introductions and what do you got planned for KD?
Oh, that's a big secret, right? Yeah.
Sure it is.
So every year during the summer, draft picks and everything that happens, I always sit down and think about the starting lineups, and I find out what the theme for the upcoming season's going to be. The last year was liftoff. And so Houston, we have liftoff, having fun with that. So we always try to tailor that around, the theme for the season. The order of the players is very strategically done, and so we can get the best effect. I always try to find something in each player introduction that is unique. And, when I think about Alperen Sengun, what a great name. And the way that Alperen Sengun, try to give it that energy, because he's a center and he's battling. So you want to reflect that in his intro. When I think about Kevin Durant coming in this season, like, you want that guttural end to that name because he is Kevin Durant. He deserves that intensity. So yeah, I look forward to that here in just a few weeks.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's so cool to hear how you think about it and how you plan for it, right? And I'm guessing also as you know, as players come in and out of the league, you have to learn all the players' names.
Pronunciations, that's
I
right.
assume pronunciations, right? The league is becoming more and more global, so it's not, the names are not as simple and
Yeah, years ago, Giannis Antetokounmpo was like the big name, but now, I mean, Giannis, honestly, that name is not that tough compared to some of the newer names. There are some French players that have come to the league over the last 2 off seasons that have some really difficult names, but thank goodness for the PR people around the league that help you learn all those pronunciations. And the last thing I'd ever want to do, Mark, and this goes back to my first season in the NBA, the absolute last thing I'd ever want to do, even if it's an away player, is mispronounce a name. Like, that is, for me, priority number one. With all our players, or even with the away players, I don't want to disrespect any player. Like, I want somebody to say my name correctly.
Sure.
And I try to be respectful of that with all the players around the league. They deserve it. I mean, they've sacrificed, they've worked hard to get here. They deserve that. And I take that very seriously.
That's very cool. What are your interactions with, I see the refs come over and they're talking to you, or they're asking you questions during timeouts. You know, sometimes there are discrepancies with the shot clock and things like that. And
Yeah, usually, thank goodness, like, my main thing is to get through a game night without them ever having to talk to me. But if they need anything, if there's ever any question, like, I always want to make sure that I'm ready to answer any question they have. And I appreciate that a lot of the officials around the league know me well enough by now that if there is an issue, they can come over and talk to me about it, and I can help them out if they need any help. You know, the stuff with the shot clock, that takes place a couple seats down Friday. But if there's ever a question, I want to make sure that I can say, yeah, here it is, and then go, okay, thank you.
And when you told me you get to the arena for a 7:00 game, 3
o'clock, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we have rehearsal about 3:30, and try to get there at 3 o'clock, set up all my equipment, make sure everything's ready to go when we start rehearsal.
It's pretty cool. So you got UT football, you've got the Houston Rockets, you've been blessed and lucky to have the Spurs. Is there anything else on your wish list of announcements that you'd like to do?
Honestly, I could die tomorrow, Mark. I'm serious. If I died tomorrow, I could be grateful for the opportunities I've had. I mean, when I was that 7-year-old kid walking around at that high school football game, if you could have told that 7-year-old version of myself that one day I would announce for the San Antonio Spurs, the Houston Rockets. I remember when Robert Horry played here, like, I was just in love, like, and seeing them win the championships here with Robert Horry here, like, it was, my imagination was just running wild possibilities, but I still would have never dreamt that one day I would be the voice of this amazing organization. Like, it just seemed so far-fetched, but I was a big dreamer. I'm a redhead. I'm a big dreamer. So, if you would have asked a 7-year-old me, I probably wouldn't have believed it, but I was going to keep on dreaming it.
Well, it's unbelievable, and you've chased your dreams, and you've accomplished them. And I thank you for coming in today. I really enjoyed the conversation. And let's go Rockets.
Let's go Rockets. Let's by the end of this season, let's you and me celebrate with a fantastic resolution to another Rockets season.
Amen, brother. Hey,
2 shots.
2 shots. Thanks for watching this week's episode. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.